Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Ecoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's episode, I have with me Nick Musica. Now, Nick is the founder and CEO of Optics In, an SEO agency headquartered in San Diego, California. And he's the co-author of When Search Meets Web Usability. Very great book, by the way. As an SEO professional since 2003, he has worked primarily as an in-house SEO, helping companies navigate the Google algorithm updates and training teams to achieve sustainable SEO results. When he isn't working on search usability, you can find Nick surfing in the Pacific Ocean or playing mediocre renditions of 80s and 90s songs on his ukulele. Nick, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So you've been doing SEO for a long time, I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion too.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's like how
I start. Go ahead. I started in 2000. Yeah, I started in 2003, and the thing about SEO is, I'm sure you and a lot of folks are listening to, like, you're sort of doing it, and you don't even know you're doing it. If you're touching a website, you're doing SEO, right? It just matters. Yeah. Is it intentional or is it non-intentional? And at the time, and roughly in 2003, I was coding using good old fashioned tables, writing copy, doing design, and so doing SEO. And then at some point, it was time to figure out what exactly was I doing. And so worked with Shari Thoreau to bring in some training into where I was working at the time. And she confirmed what we knew, what we didn't know. And that sort of sent me on a trajectory of focusing and hunkering down into SEO as a career. Yeah.
She is, she's a pretty big deal in SEO, isn't she? Tell us a little bit about her and how you got connected to her. So I recall reading a little bit about it, but
she's a big,
interesting story. Because you were working for someone and something happened and you needed her. Because I can't remember, but
I was working for one of the babies of AT&T at the time in New Jersey, and we hired an SEO firm. I think it was a 4-month contract. 6-month contract, and months 1 through 3, literally the deliverable was 4 PDFs that contained screenshots of the website in question, and it was an arrow that said, put keyword X here, and that was it. That was the extent.
Wow.
And at the time, it was either $6,000 or $7,000 a month for a 4-page PDF.
Or $7,000 a month for a 4-page PDF.
Whatever it was, 4 pages a month, or whatever it was. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot. If you were to equate that now, it would be 2 hours of work, 3 hours if you were distracted, if you didn't know the category.
2 hours in the entire 3 months, or 2 hours per month. Who knows? It wasn't very much work.
A month. Whatever it was. It's a very high rate. Yeah. So then the 4th month, I remember this explicitly since last we chatted. It was. They sent over best practices of cross-linking, interlinking, however you want to call it, on your website. And I copied and pasted, dumped it into Google, what they had in the PDF. And
no way.
What came up was basically like, here are the best practices. It had nothing to do with our website. It was just cross-linking is good. It helps Google find stuff. You should cross-link relevant to relevant, internal anchor text, et cetera, et cetera. But there's nothing on your page link over here, on this page link. There was nothing prescriptive. Wow. It was just, right. And so at that point, my boss agreed to go get someone to train us. So I found a gentleman that I liked, and he said, no, we don't want that person. We want someone who is established and has a reputation in the industry for training. And so Shari came up as part of the training. And so we brought her in. We did 1, 2, whatever it was. It's been a long time. 2-day training, maybe 3, and it was great. I mean, she just broke everything down. We're able to nod at each other and go, "Great, we're doing it right," or we go, "Oh, we had no idea," right? And so she just helped really solidify what was important, what wasn't important, what we had going well, what we didn't have going well. And from there, as she predicted, she said, this is sort of what happens when I do training. People get new jobs. Within 4 months, I had a new job.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Wow. It's because you learned a new skill set and probably had more value to bring to the market and probably enjoyed doing something more than what you were actually doing.
And that was it. Yes. And so instead of doing 5 different things in a mediocre way, it was time to hunker down into SEO. And so I got my first job at a car insurance company doing SEO in Jersey. And not everyone has that reaction.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just I worked in the car industry for 5 years. So that's why I find it interesting. Yeah,
so for car insurance, which is terribly, and I'm sure this is the same thing in the car broad industry at the time and even now, it was terribly competitive, right? So they wanted someone who knew SEO, who could step in and start doing the work. And it was cool. Car insurance is a category that you need to have legally in most states. And so that makes sort of working in that industry pretty easy from a ready, steady paycheck perspective. It was cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, cool. It's interesting. The industry even today is tainted with people who it's kind of unfortunate that our industry, and when I mean digital marketing in general, but SEO as well, it's kind of hard to know if someone knows what they're doing or not, unless you have a track record. And it's so unfortunate that there are bad actors out there who give the rest of us a bad name, who don't know what they're doing and rip people off. I know of one story of a business that the marketing agency that was doing their industry, their SEO, would come in and show him screenshots of Google Analytics and the traffic. And that was it. Like there was no, it was crazy, man. Yeah. It wasn't even SEO. It was like how many backlinks they built, no, content creation, no on page, no technical, no nothing.
Technical,
just
no
nothing.
Content.
No content, no nothing. Yeah. And another company, they spent $100,000 on an SEO campaign over a period of 6 to 7 months, about $10,000 a month, but $100,000 in total, and
it's a lot of money.
No deliverables. And and I know this because I was brought in, and the company showed them inflated broad match keywords for traffic volume that had nothing to do with search intent. Nothing to do with search intent. Like, hey, look, we'll get all this traffic from all these keywords. And the business owner was so ill-informed and so uninformed and thinking he was going to take over the world with his business that they really fooled him. Yeah. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is
it's a shame.
Yeah, it is. And so I hope that people can avoid that in listening to things like this of what the best way to do it is. And so how have you, 20 something years, how have you seen SEO change over the course of your career? Like, is there anything you can highlight of aha moments you had where it's like, wow, like maybe even some of the Google updates?
Yeah, sure. And to respond to what you're talking about prior with the also having a bad name. It's well deserved to have a checkered reputation because of exactly what you said.
Yeah,
which makes everyone's job harder who's been doing this for more than a hot minute and took a class that of more than 5 slides that says, you're now an SEO expert, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
So that hasn't changed. But what has changed is, there used to be a lot of big gorilla in the room that would, aka a website, that would get a ton of traffic, and they're still out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the more interesting things that's happening now is, which also makes it harder to rank, so double edged, is there's a lot of the intent going on that Google can sniff out better than they could have a long time ago.
Yeah.
So simply writing and this is an oversimplification, simply writing good content that addresses the query is really the best way to go. Where, I don't know, 10 years ago, my time frame is very distorted because COVID is, you didn't have to do it. You could sort of bully the algorithm a little bit more and get the results you wanted.
Yeah.
But today, if you can find the opportunities today are if you can find high volume, low keyword difficulty, and I'm referring to some of the tools that are out there, but more specifically, take a look at the search engine results pages and see who's ranking for what. And is there a hole you can fill by answering the query better? Because maybe, for argument's sake, maybe Healthline is ranking really well for a long tail query, but maybe it's not the best page, possibly.
Okay.
So there could be room to elbow your way in there with either one of the 10 blue links, or maybe people also ask, or some other pattern that's on that page.
That's a thing that's changed, isn't it? The people also ask on the search results page, because that used to never be there. It was just 10 organic results, and there you go. But Google's gotten smarter. Which
was like, it was easier to rank back then. There was just less people doing it, right? Less understanding, I think. And at some point, links became a bad idea because Penguin and Panda, just instilled fear, I think, with a lot of folks. And then sometime between that was around 2012 and now, content's become the cool kid. So intent with all that new content, it's easier to, I would imagine, from an algorithmic perspective, it's easier to sniff out intent and pages that map to that intent when you have that much more content to work with, says an algorithm. And then it's actually harder from an SEO perspective because there's all these patterns now. So position, like, when did position 0 become a thing? That makes no sense. And I get that it makes sense because of the patterns. But you rank for position 0 and someone goes, that's a good idea. It is because reasons, right? Because it's not one of the 10 blue links. Okay. But that never was a conversation. But it's also, it's easier, also harder, depending on your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just, there's so many disciplines in digital marketing, and you really have to specialize in one thing and either choose SEO or choose PPC or choose social or choose analytics or choose a marketing automation or choose. That's been my biggest thing is I'm like, oh, there's a shiny object. Oh, there's a shiny, and I've learned about it all. And rather than I wish I'd gone back and just sunk it into just doing SEO and learning about it. So I learning everything about it, to the level that you have. So, some of the changes, I guess, that have happened, like you talked about HTML websites and tables. I mean, those are incredible. And, we're going back to the days of, probably inserting keywords in the keyword stuffing in the meta tags and the title and the meta keywords and things that don't even work anymore. And, what do you think has been the biggest change? Has it been content management systems like WordPress and Joomla and Drupal to make it easier to do technical SEO, and the plugins that go with it like Yoast and Rank Math? Or something totally different? You get what I'm saying? Or
I mean, there's so many things that have changed. So let's just talk about the CMSs, right? So the CMSs are sort of, the wonderful thing about digital is anyone can do it. The terrible thing about digital is anyone can do it, right? Like Photoshop, like now I'm a designer, right? Like Microsoft Word, now I'm a writer. WordPress, now I'm a publisher and I'm an SEO. Like, I mean, you're not. You're just not. Like I'm going to use a hammer very differently than a carpenter's going to use a hammer. I'm going to walk out with a bloody thumb, right? So
me too.
And they're going to build a wonderful house for someone to live in. That's not me. It's also the same tool, right? Yeah. So these systems are wonderful. So we do a couple different types of technical audits. We do a mini and we have a full audit, right? So the full audit is typically reserved for folks who have legacy type of technology. So Cold Fusion, ASP, ASPX, homegrown,
Yep.
or combination of those things. Typically, it's going to be banged up pretty well. At the time, it was quote unquote working for what they were looking to accomplish. But now, for whatever reason, SEO is interesting for them. And they come to me, and now there's a very specific lens on that website via SEO. That's going to get the full audit because there will be problems to uncover.
Yeah.
The other CMSs, WordPress, Shopify, etc., we typically run a half audit on those. So we take a look at the same things, but the amount of issues that show up are typically less.
Okay.
So it just takes less time to go through it. But out of the box, they're way better than legacy, but they're still not optimized. And so one example is Webflow, which is the new cool kid. At least twice that I've seen websites, the canonical tag's all banged up for whatever reason. So that's not going to help out. So among other findings, we're gonna call out the canonical tag rated as a high level priority. Yeah. WordPress, right? The wonderful thing about WordPress is it does everything in the world. That we do a lot of work in WordPress. You want us to do something, there's a plugin, right? If it's maintained, if it's SEO friendly, regardless if it's saying it's SEO friendly or not, like please don't think it's SEO friendly just because it says it is. What is a wonderful thing about WordPress, and that's a little snarky what I just said, leading into this next comment, is when you take a look at the sitemap, sometimes when you put a new plugin in, you're going to have the XML sitemap. You're going to have, instead of just pages and posts, author, and whatever else may be there by default, you're going to have FAQs, testimonials. You're going to have a bunch of other WordPress type plugins that show up. And sometimes those plugins are creating XML sitemaps for snippets of pages. So now we have issues around the sitemaps, creating essentially pages that are snippets of pages. And so now we don't have actually 10 pages of a website, again, for argument's sake, for a small website. What we have is 10 pages. And if they were to use 10 different plugins to infuse, back in the day, it was almost an include. It was basically an include. Now we're using plugins to do it. What we're having now is other pages that are associated with those plugins. So now we have 10 real pages and 10 plugins creating extraneous pages that are getting crawled, indexed, and are competing with what we consider to be the pages or the posts.
Yeah.
It creates a mess.
And then that creates an issue.
That creates an issue, right?
Absolutely. I didn't even know. I've been building WordPress websites since 2006. So I've never done something like that or had that happen, but I can see how someone might screw that up and do that. How did you develop? Is it just because you obviously have an IP, and what I mean by IP, intellectual property, and I don't want you to tell me what it is, but obviously in the 20 years from all the things that you've seen, like you just mentioned the canonical tag of not being prioritized or configured properly, whatever the case may be. But how did you go about putting your entire, because doing a website audit is complex. So did it continuously evolve over time in regards to your training and your experience that enabled you to come up with a full website audit? I mean, do you mind if I ask how many points is it? Is that even a valid question? Is it 1,000, 280 website audit that you look for, or is it?
We have it's almost like how Google would tell you. There's 200 type of algorithmic considerations. Okay. But within each one, there's certain considerations. Yeah. Right. So we'll take a look at the meta descriptions, just using this as an example. But then, one, do they exist? Are they duplicate? Are they too short? Are they too long? Right. So we may say there's 10 things we look at, but within each and every one, there's 5 facets of whatever we're looking at. Generally speaking, I can tell you that for our we use Asana as one of our applications, and so cool. we have about 100. It's a template project. We have about 100 items in there that we just copy paste and start the audit off of. Yeah,
so you have a template sort of tasks that starts the audit.
Yeah, but then you get into Like, that may be good for like the mini audits, but then you get into some of the bigger, more complex legacy stuff, and it's helpful to discover. But sometimes you have canonical tags which are doing something odd, or you have mixed case, or you have URLs, or you have 301s that are looping because the status code, because the canonical tag, there could become and so right. And so like our 100 items that we're checking for isn't going to necessarily catch all that. It's a starting point for catching all that.
It's a starting point. Wow. And so it was just developed over you documenting what you were learning over the years, and as well as what Google's best practices are, as well as, experience.
That was it. And honestly, I never intended to do technical SEO like this. I was always a content guy. My background was in journalism. So I'm really a content nerd from that perspective. But every time I went to go take a look at someone's website, there would always be something technical that would show up. Right, every time. Yeah. And every time. So like 404s, 300s, right? Even back in the day, it's not so much true today, but back in the day, www versus non-www. Secure versus non-secure is like, well, you can have 4 different websites there, and some people did. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that was a huge thing.
That was a big thing.
People didn't realize it either. They didn't understand.
And some people still don't. They still don't.
Yeah, it was. This. I try and explain that to people as well. That there's, you gotta like pick one. Do you think it matters? Right. I have people that say, you should go with www versus non-www, and I don't. Does it matter?
I don't think it matters. It's just pick one. Just please pick one.
Yeah, just pick one. Yeah, pick one, and stick with it.
And stick with it. Yeah,
and stick with it. So, there's what? Can you tell me a story, maybe, of one of the biggest technical SEO blunders that you came across and how you fixed it?
Technical blunder.
Like one of the biggest technical SEO horror stories where, you were just talking about something just now, a legacy site, or, a story that just really sticks out in your mind of a project, a website that was just banged up. And you're like, wow, these are all the things we had to do to fix it.
Yeah. It would definitely be legacy, not WordPress, not Shopify, but, legacy. I think it was Drupal.
Oh, Drupal.
I think it was Drupal.
Yeah.
And it sort of doesn't matter, right? Because the technical in this case it's not specific to the platform. It's specific to the time that the site was built, and it was the version of, it works, and then how come SEO is banged up. So there was a lot of tags, categories that were being misused. There was a lot of smaller pages, like an FAQ page, and it's 200 words, and multiply that out by a lot of pages, and then we're not getting the result we want. Well, there's solutions to all these problems, but when you multiply a bad practice out by hundreds of instances, you tend to get a bad result.
Oh gosh.
And actually, I would love to talk about the time that I used the canonical tag wrong. I think this is really helpful.
Sure.
Yeah. So it was my misunderstanding of working at a job 2 jobs ago, my second to last job before starting the agency. And where I was working at the time, there were, going back to the domains, this was at dmb.org, which sounds a whole lot like the DMB. Also is a private publisher. We just happen to publish a lot of DMB related content. So we had local.dmb.org, www.dmb.org, and search.dmb.org. And it was considered the website, and one website. And my perspective, same as yours, is, well, that's at least 3 websites. Let's understand what's on them. No. But the domain was considered one website, regardless of any subdomain. Follow me?
I'm following you. I'm pretty sure I'm following you.
So from that, yeah. So from that perspective, it was coded that way. So robots.txt was coded for one website, but one domain, but 3 websites. So one robots.txt file was shared with three websites.
Oh, interesting.
Because of how it was set up. Right. Yeah. Right. And so me coming into this perspective, thinking how I do, right?
Yeah.
Subdomain, it gets its own sitemap XML, it gets its own robots.txt, it gets its own code base, et cetera, et cetera.
Which makes sense.
Right. Well, unless of course it doesn't. And it didn't in this case.
Okay.
So I made a request for the canonical tag to be changed on on www.dmb.org. Unbeknownst to me, it was changed on local dot in a way that didn't make sense. Well, local dot lost a ton of traffic about 7 days after the canonical tag was changed. How it happened exactly, I don't know. This certainly wasn't my request, and I didn't know to look for it because it wasn't my request. But I believe every page got canonicalized to the homepage.
Oh, right. It was a subdomain local dot, right?
Right. Yeah. So all the pages, because local dot was like local.dmb.org/topic/location, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Of a business, be it car insurance or DMB location or whatever it was. So they all got canonicalized to the homepage, local.dmb.org, which according to Google, certainly at the time it's not a directive, it's a suggestion. Right.
Oh,
well, no.
Yeah.
In this case, they took it as a directive.
Okay.
Which they shouldn't have. So really they should have recognized this as someone goofed up their website, ignore it, continue as business as usual. They should have, really.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So the website tanked. It took a little bit to find the issue. Yeah, that's right. So we fixed the canonical tag, and then I learned, so we're using robots.txt and all the same file on all the sites, and so this started a big conversation about what we mean by the site, aka the domain, not the actual 3 subdomains.
Okay.
So that technical architecture got detangled and made things better over the long run, certainly. However, at that time, we lost a lot of traffic and a lot of revenue. I think it took 4 weeks for it to come back fully.
Oh, so one mistake that can be done in 30 seconds took 4 weeks to recover.
Right.
Holy
by
crap.
Me not understanding the technical architecture and what I thought was a simple request on this website impacted the other one. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's, I'm just, my brain is thinking about how complex what you shared is and how easy it is to make a mistake. That can how were they very gracious in regards to
I kept my job.
Happened?
Yeah.
or did they hand you a pink slip? Or did they they give you a pink slip?
No, I mean, it was a really great place to work for a very long time. And so, so no harm, no foul. And we found, we understood why things happened the way they did.
Yeah.
And we corrected the problem and it helped to facilitate, like I said, those other things. But that was my first real live experiment, if you will, of what Google says and what Google does are very different things sometimes.
Different things. Yeah.
So when they're like, just right. So you'll hear, Matt Cutts or Mueller today saying this phrase in so many ways. We'll figure it out. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Well, that's not true. That's not true from my perspective. You want to hedge your bets. You want to have them not make a decision. You want to use the canonical tag correctly. You want to use the no index tag correctly. You want to make sure your site is as tight as it can possibly be, or else an algorithm is going to make a decision for you.
And that could be disastrous if it makes the wrong decision.
Right. And in this case, it was the canonical tag is it's only a suggestion. Well, unless, of course, they say it's a directive. It was interpreted as a directive. Yeah.
Wow. Hey, Stupid question, but because I have predominantly, I used to fiddle around in Joomla, but I really saw the power of WordPress and how it was going to, I knew it was going to explode back in 2007. I knew it. But I've read articles that the question I'm trying to get to is how important is the robots.txt file still important in today's SEO landscape? And putting those, or does it depend on what type of website you have?
Yes, important. No, it doesn't depend on the website. The type of website.
Like
I don't think so.
Okay. And what I'm referring to specifically was thinking about legacy sites versus WordPress websites. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your best chances of having all the controls work for you, robots.txt, canonical tag, all the tools we have at our disposal. The best chance you have working with them well is one, come out of the gate strong and have the controls in place when you're coming out of the gate.
Okay.
With the new website, if it's a new website.
Okay.
Yeah, let's pretend it's a new website, then we'll get to an old website. So with the new website, being super intentional about why we're using something and what the expectation we're trying to get, or the result we're trying to get from it. And so we have expectations there. And if it doesn't work out and we're seeing things, seeing pages in the index, maybe there's a reason, maybe we screwed something up. Let's go back and take a look at our controls. Robots.txt is but one of them. Google should be coming to the website, hitting robots.txt, getting its directives from there, and then going about its business. It should. And I've also seen it should, right? Yes. And sometimes that's not the case. Like your file that you told Google to stay away from via robots.txt has now been crawled, indexed, and now it's out in the wild. And sometimes that's an issue and sometimes it's not, depending on the scale of it, right? SEO is about how well you did in volumes or how terribly you have done in volumes. Those are on both sides of the spectrum there, right? So you want to fight for the click. You want to make sure everything you're doing is above board. All your controls are in place and you're using it the right way, or else you're causing confusion for Google because robots.txt says this. Your canonical tag maybe argues with it. If you have a canonical and you have a no follow on your page, for example, like that's a mixed signal. Google now needs to make a decision. Don't let it make a decision. So being really intentional about having an indexation strategy for a website, be it an old site or a new site. What do we want indexed? What do we not want indexed? And putting the right controls around it are helpful. If you're not getting the reaction from Google with robots.txt, you can use the robots no index on the page. But now we just got into crawler cap considerations where if it's a 10-page website, who cares? If it's a 10,000 page website, you may care a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are, I've never dealt with 10,000 page websites. I can imagine how complicated that would be. Right now, I'm thinking about, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so at dmv.org, so that was the biggest website I worked on in my career to date.
Okay.
www.dmv.org had about 5,000 pages on it, let's just say.
Okay.
We rewrote all the content on that site. So it's fresh, up to date. It's as good as it could possibly be when you're researching a government website where some states are better than others. Typically it boils down to this. If the state has a good budget, their DMV related site is going to be pretty good. Therefore, we can research the content and distill down the information so that it's more actionable. But if it's a less funded state, then the content is harder to find if it even exists, and it's harder to answer the questions because sometimes the content is not as good on those less funded states. Okay. So we did the best we could with what we had to work with copy-wise, and I believe we produced a pretty good product.
And so you're talking about DMV, like DonaldMillerVictor.org.
That's right.
Okay. I'm looking at it right now.
So I was there for 6 years.
Privately owned.
I was there for 6 years. I started in 2012. 6 years later is when I left. And when I started, the site was getting 85 million visits a year through SEO.
Oh, wow. When you started,
right, I know,
or when
a
you
lot.
left?
When I started.
85 million a year. My goodness.
A year. When I left, it was getting 185 million a year, largely through SEO.
Wow. Largely through SEO. And how much of that was developing new content?
Not a lot. Not a lot of it was developing new content. Yeah. The site, I mean, it's very
technical.
interesting.
From making
the majority.
Technical,
I would say the majority was from. Yeah. And the content wasn't good when I started. It wasn't good. It all had to be rewritten.
Okay.
So I don't want to say the content didn't add to that value. It certainly did. But I mean, I did the work. I know that it was banged up technically. And with a site like that, when it was that banged up technically, and it was still that good, right? You just sort of had to remove the blockages from Google. And now it was able to just to crawl way better, more efficiently. It was for this website. If it was able to crawl this website more efficiently, more frequently, if you can get to the same page more frequently, the trust value of that page increased. Therefore, the rank on that page started to increase. You multiply that out by 1,000, whatever it was, 5,000 pages. Well, you go from 85 million to 185 million in 6 years. It was pretty great to see that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. That's amazing. Like, so, what's the best way to structure the site then? Let's just talk about a new site. Like, I don't want to sound simplistic or like a simpleton. But when you've got a site, you talked about earlier, like somebody was making a mistake with categories and tags and so on and so forth. And I imagine that gets into duplicate content issues and which version of it is supposed to be. And at the car dealership, I ran into that too, because, they use faceted navigation to find the inventory. And it's not like it's not, I know it's not a e-commerce website, so to speak, in the sense you're buying something online, but you are filling out a form in order to eventually, make an inquiry. But in regards to structure, I mean, there's silo building and all those things, and people talk about how Google's not going to crawl more than 4 levels. Like if you have 4, you have a nested architecture, and it's not going to go more than 4 levels. So then you should break out a new silo and so on and so forth. So how the heck does someone figure out what the best way to do that is?
I mean, in this case, I would say cross-linking is your friend. Interlinking is your friend.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so because if it's not going to be 4 levels, it's going to be pagination that gets you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's either, starting the homepage and then A to B to C to D, or it's going to be a few categories of content, but you click on one and you're like, how many pages in the pagination? Right. And so, you basically just have to help little Googlebot out, right? Be Googlebot's friend. Show it around your website. Just lead it around. And you do that with the, you don't have to get back into the technical, but clean technical architecture. So it's not chasing its own tail and you're not giving it mixed signals. Let's assume all that stuff is taken care of. Now we're just talking about access. So give it the right access and the right context for the access.
Yeah.
So four layers deep, I mean, maybe that's perfectly fine depending on the website, depending on the quality of the site, depending on your interlinking structure, depending on if you can navigate by clicking on department, category, subcategory, destination page, right? That would be 4 levels, or it's category, subcategory, destination page. But just make it easy. If a user can click on it relatively easy and find that endpoint, Google should, to a large degree, assuming clean architecture, assuming fast website, all those things.
Yeah, those factors are important. Are there tools? Like, I mean, I'm familiar, there's Screaming Frog and those things. But what are the best tools besides that? Are there any other tools that you swear by for technical SEO?
I love Screaming Frog. When I was at deepme.org, we used Deep Crawl because it was a bigger website and we had to keep on top of it more. And That was the flagship website. So we wanted to make sure it was on the regular, that we were getting reports, and that if anything came out of a release that was a little wonky, we had visibility into it. So that's why we used deep crawl there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Deep crawl.
Yeah, deep crawl.
Yeah. But our go-to tools are frequently Ahrefs, Google Search Console, Screaming Frog, if we're doing technical, but also you're looking at, you can't just run reports. You can for some websites.
Yeah.
But largely you need to poke around. You need to understand the website, or else you're not going to glean the issues out of those reports in and of themselves, or your understanding of what the issues are going to be superficial more than holistic.
Yeah, to be able to understand. So it's also interpreting the data, being able to interpret what those tools are telling you. And I'm laughing because you can't do that. Like someone who took like you said, somebody who took an technical SEO course on LinkedIn Learning can't,
Right. And there's also, I mean, we started the conversation off this way. There's agencies that just do a disservice because $1,000 a month to a big agency is not the same weight that $1,000 a month would carry with a smaller company, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're going to get kicked to the bottom of the pile, and you're going to have someone working on your website who may or may not know SEO, or they may leave your website, your account, to go on the latest account that's worth twice as much or whatever it may be. And I had one of these folks. They came from an agency that we don't need to talk about, but they came from an agency, and it was really difficult for me to come to grips with you. But you've been working with an agency for how long? For 12 months?
Oh yeah.
Well, well, they didn't do you any good. They just didn't. So for 12 months, they got disserviced, and we ended up doing a full audit on this website. It wasn't the mini, it was the full, because nothing was taken care of.
Yeah.
So
that's unfortunate.
There is totally unfortunate. So now this business owner is at least 12 months behind on her results, is frustrated. I need to sort of dig myself out of a hole that I didn't even create because this other agency created it.
Yeah.
And ideally get the account, and ideally be able to work them in a productive manner, because she was not happy with
Oh, no,
SEO.
there should she be. Yeah, neither should she be.
No. Right.
Yeah. I came across a site the other day. It's a WordPress site, and it's still using the post IDs for the permalinks. The permalinks aren't even turned on.
Sure.
And the company's been paying them for a year for SEO. And the meta titles are not properly written. There's no rhyme nor reason for any optimization of any of the pages. So it's really sucks that, and to me, it blows my mind away that there's bad people in every industry. I would say personally, there's doctors who aren't very good. There's carpenters who aren't very good. There's SEOs that aren't very good. Sure. And so it makes it harder for us. Yeah. There's I came up with a list of like 32 questions to ask you, and I haven't even asked one.
Yeah.
And because there's just, I mean, we could talk about this for another hour and a half. But there's some things I want to try and glean out of you. Like, if there's a brand new website, and what process should a business owner or look to for their making sure their technical SEO and the structure of their website is sound? For instance, here's a question. For instance, pagination, solving the pagination issue. And we can even use WordPress as an example, because it powers 33 or 37% of the internet. Are there things that, so for instance, I'll lead like site speed you have to have good hosting and good fast loading site. And that's going to I know that especially for e-commerce, 1 second delay, for every 1 second delay in site load, it costs a certain amount of money. It's pretty significant in regards to conversions. But are there any other things that people should look for in regards to, site speed, like structured data, site architecture, making sure your XML sitemap is properly configured, and any other things that you off the top of your head that you would say are common that people should consider?
So robust TXT, we want to make sure that's good.
Okay, sure.
XML sitemap.
There's that one. Okay.
Yeah, make sure they're included in the Search Console. Make sure there's not everyone under the sun. Speaking of WordPress, right? That'll produce a lot of them, potentially, depending on the plugins. Site speed, that's a tricky one because you have the same plugin on the same website will act differently based on two different hosts, right? So you got to be sure what your host, your plugins, make sure everything is lined up, or else you may get some wonky result there. But you're talking about page speed from the perspective of conversion, from the perspective of, which is totally true. And from the perspective of SEO, having a site that lags when there's a couple pages, probably not a big deal. Okay. Having a site that lags when you have a couple hundred, right? Like if you plan on building out, if you have a publishing model, for example, you better pay more attention to it. It's going to be more meaningful in that context. Okay. So work on as best as possible. But then you run into this problem too, right? So like WordPress is great because it allows you to do everything, but at some point you're just weighing it down with all the plugins, and so you got to figure out what a good idea is, and also like if you can get 100 arbitrary score, sort of, good for you. Like make the site as fast as possible. Okay. But there's also this philosophy where, at least that we have, where we talk about page speed, which is, well, where do you ramp up next to your competition? Like how do you rank in terms of page speed?
Okay. That's very interesting.
Right, because how my client ranks or compares in page speed to Apple, for example, that's just not relevant. It's not relevant.
My gosh, does that ever make so much sense? I never thought of that before.
Right, so you want to it's all about contextualizing, right? Like my page speed is terrible. Is it? Well, maybe let's see.
Maybe
let's see.
Compare. Yeah, when I used to sell cars, I used to sell a certain kind of car, and I used to sell Mazdas. So whatever, Mazda in the States, Mazda in Canada, and people say, "Oh man, that's expensive." And my first question was, compared to what? So it's like in this context, it's like, "Oh, my site is slow." Well, compared to what? Like compared to Amazon, sure. Compared to Apple, sure. But what about compared, like what you're saying? This is a nugget right here. What about compared to your competitors? Are you slow or are you fast? Because that really should be the benchmark, especially when it comes to SEO, right?
Right.
This just opened up a who knew way of thinking for me in that regard. So, wow.
And also, like it's one of, let's just say this is completely true. It's one of 200 signals. So, like you can't be in the doghouse, but like how fast do you really need to be to get the results you're looking for?
Yeah. And it's amazing how impatient society has become with phones and and all of these things to like, they want stuff like now. But I think if your site's loading, like if you're a plumber and your site's loading fairly fast, like, I mean, you're getting a B, like let's hypothetically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not the end of the world. Like the reward versus effort equation in regards to trying to take it to taking it to the Lamborghini speeds. I think that it's going to be nominal in regards to the payout. I think what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And then we have the core vitals. And like people get obsessive about a bunch of these things. I have a client who I do is more consulting than anything else with, and they made one of the best sites you can make technically. Okay. However, they got dinged in May. They got dinged because it wasn't about the technical. They got dinged with an algorithm update. It wasn't about the technical. It was about other things. that were
So that
exciting.
algorithm update that just came out in May, they got dinged by that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. And so everything was at play. Robust TXT, sitemap, schema, like all you name the technical, it was at play. It was really good. Site speed, it was all good.
Wow.
But for whatever reason, because maybe Google didn't like the website because it likes to just ragdoll websites every once in a while, or because there were other things going on, which that's the case here.
Yeah. Which I won't press you on because yeah.
I mean,
but is it thin content?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want you. Yeah, I didn't want you to divulge, any specific details. But so thin content though is also it could. I mean, is it considered a technical SEO thing? Like, would you put it thin content under the category of technical SEO, or is it just bad content? That's what I'm trying to ask.
In our audits, we include thin content.
Okay.
We don't get into too much of the details around it, but we'll call out like you have a bunch of thin content, screenshot. This is more of a content conversation, rabbit hole issue. Let's talk about it.
My goodness, there's so many things we could talk about right now because I do this every day. And the thin content issue, for instance, I know of a particular plugin that uses a page. I don't know why he does this, but there's some reason why he does this in his plugin. It's a CRM plugin, and he just creates a single page that has no content on it. If you go there, for some reason, it's for the functionality of the plugin. But could that potentially be a thin content issue because it's a page that has no content on it? Or could you just solve it by putting no index?
Well, let's take that question without the no index first. It's most likely going to show up as a soft 404. If it's a 200 and there's no content on it, it's going to show up as a soft 404 in Google Search Console.
Okay.
Right. So, which is bad. You don't want that. You want a hard 404 where you can get those. But this most likely will turn into a soft 404. If it's one page, that's one thing. If it's 1,000 pages or whatever the number is that hits a threshold and makes it a bad time for your website, then you should probably nuke all of those pages. They should all be hard 404s. When you throw the robots TXT, you said no index. So maybe,
no index, yeah.
But I've also, but so maybe. So again, what Google says, what it does for whatever reason, because maybe they found these pages before and then you put the tag on top, it may or may not solve the issue. So recently, and this is another website that I worked on, a long-term client, they got dinged in May, different client.
Okay.
And the reason why they got dinged is because they were testing out we'll call it an affiliate shopping cart of sorts. So they grabbed a feed, created a lot of pages. They were thin pages, put put no index on them. But Google already found some of them.
Oh, okay.
Not all of them, not 6,000. So they're like 6,000 product pages compared to 1,500 content pages. So the balance is now way out of whack, right?
Oh, way out of whack.
Way out of whack. However, no index was applied to these product pages.
Okay.
Didn't matter. Google found enough, didn't honor the no index because it found them. And when it went back, it had a chance to find the no index, but it didn't matter. Tanked the website.
Wow. Tanked it.
Tanked the website into May.
Son of a gun.
Right. And it was excluded. It wasn't supposed to be part of the Google game, right?
Yeah.
But it was.
They didn't want it to be. They didn't want it to be part of the Google game, and they were trying to still. Wow.
They were trying to leverage affiliate links in a feed for their audience, which were good candidates for the products that were being available.
Yeah. But they didn't want to include it in the Google game. They just wanted so they wanted to include it in the user experience, but not in the SEO Google game.
Right.
I wonder if Google sees that as a misrepresentation of trying to manipulate your audience or something.
I don't know, but so
I have no idea how they
80% of traffic went missing. 80%.
Yeah, 80.
And it was terrible. 80. So we took all those pages off, made the corrections, and 6 weeks later, it's ready, steady. After a false recovery, there was a false recovery, went back down to almost nothing, and now it's back to where it was in mid-May.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so this was a core algorithm update. Yeah. So going back to another one of these, Google says something, is it true perspective, right? So more than once, I'm sure you've read, there was a core algorithm update. There's nothing you can do, just make your site better, right? It's terrible language. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, or it's good old fashioned SEO.
Yeah.
Or that. In this case, it was good old fashioned SEO mostly. Google ignored the no index. So we took off, we removed the 6,000 pages, and magically the site comes back. So,
wow. So they're not going to always pay. They're not always going to observe your requests to do something like no index. Don't index these pages, Google. Like, yet they still will.
Oh, you
not to beat it. I'm still here.
No, did I lose you? Check.
No, I'm still here. But you're frozen.
Yeah.
So the lesson learned here is that, always make sure you have good technical SEO in place, and maybe sometimes if you have an idea that you're going to implement like that affiliate thing, like what do you think are some other ways they could have tried that, like creating a new domain? But I don't know. Just trying to think about how could they have mitigated that from happening
creating
without having to go
shop.domain.com, something like that.
Yeah. That probably would have been a way to do it.
Yeah. And after this experience, I would wonder, would that hurt the domain overall? I don't know. Like, are you just transferring these bad pages to a subdomain, and so we don't like your entire domain now? Maybe.
Yeah. Wow. So there's a lot of thought that has to go into contemplating a move like that. If this is a lesson that people can learn just from watching this to save a ton of headache, whether you're dealing with clients or it's your own entity. And I was going to say, not to beat a dead horse, but this page that I was telling you about, like it's a specific page on WordPress that has 2 letters / then it says, shh, this is a secret page, go away. And for some reason he uses it. And it's like, to me, that's not a good thing for SEO. To this day, I have absolutely no idea why his plugin operates this way with a page like that. And I don't want to say the name of the plugin because I don't want to bash the plugin creator. His plugin is very
It sounds odd.
Potent.
It sounds odd. Yeah.
His plugin is a very powerful plugin. It's just I just don't understand why he does that.
It always creates this page.
Yeah, with every single I'll tell you off camera what it's about. Do you think, here's a really stupid question, and forgive me if it is, but I went to school into web design, and I understand, and I see, we were talking earlier about properly building websites, and I kid you not, I'm a part of a WordPress group that's page builders, and a page builder WordPress group for the particular page builder I use. And every day I go in there and I see websites that are built wrong. And it just blows my mind away from a marketing point of view, but from a site structure and SEO point of view, I'm just like, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe someone paid you money to do this. And then sometimes I've made comments in there about SEO, and I've had people just whiplash me, tongue lash me with their keyboard. I'm like, you know what? Up your flipping nose with a rubber hose. I know what I know. I don't need to like prove it to you or even tell you this information. Like, whatever. Like, I'm not going to go on about how I know everything I know. I mean, I've learned things from you and from other people in SEO through various courses in my own experience. Like, I'm not this person that everybody knows about on the internet, but I kicked some ass at some dealership I worked at and had a pretty significant case study. But the point I'm trying to make is how can people learn to avoid these mistakes, and how can web designers and marketers learn? Where can they go to learn, like how you learned this tool? Like, have you ever considered putting a course together, or are there resources out there to, I mean, I know there's LinkedIn Learning and other such things, but does it really just come from experience, Nick, or there are ways that web designers can learn how to build better websites from an SEO perspective? Because what we do is what crappy web designers put crappy websites together from a technical point of view, and then we got to come along and fix them. And then we piss off the web designer because they're like, and it's like, there's got to be a solution.
Yeah, I mean, Flash is showing up in my brain, right? Like, back in the day, like Flash was awesome. People loved Flash. All the things moving around, it was so cool. And it was like,
I learned how to use Flash in school.
I learned it. I was awful at it, but I wanted to learn it. But it was right. But you could build an entire website out of Flash, and there was absolutely the only copy on the page was the title tag and meta description, right? Like, it was just terrible. It's terrible. But that still exists today. At least the spirit of it. Like, cool thing, implement. Why? Because I thought it was cool.
Yeah. The flashy stuff.
What about?
I hate the flashy stuff.
Oh my goodness. It's like, just I know.
Focus on the content and user experience. Forget about the flashing bleepy things and the flashy stuff that's ridiculous. The animations and this coming in from the left and that coming in from the right. It's like, not only does it slow your website down, there's no reason for it.
Totally. I mean, it's such a cop out answer, but and it's true. Like, if you start with the user and that's your prime motivator, like it's a little hard to go wrong from using that as your starting point. You can go wrong.
Okay.
But you'll go way less wrong. Right? Like, is the navigation clear? Are the labels clear? If you're like, this is cool, I named the thing, the label, the page, whatever it is, something that I think is funny, like, probably not going to be effective. But if you're going to name it something that a user will identify with, well, that's way better.
Yeah.
Simple.
And I guess I would say this then, is that if you're going to design websites, it's no longer about just taking a graphical mock-up in Photoshop and coding it into a WordPress theme or whatever it is you're doing. Like, you should, if you're going to call yourself a web designer, you should go and learn the basics of information architecture, site architecture, navigation structures, on-page SEO, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Rather than
totally. I mean, some of my favorites for what we're talking about here, like, if you're a web designer who wants to learn more than just Photoshop, shall we say, right?
Yeah. Okay.
There's a firm I used to work with, the Understanding Group is. Oh yeah. Are you familiar with these guys?
No, I'm not. But they sound very interesting.
Yeah. The Understanding Group. So they are. Is it Michigan? Yeah, they're out of Michigan. Peter Morville, who is the godfather of information architecture, is associated with them.
Oh, he is
at some point.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. I worked with Peter. Yeah, amazing. I worked with Peter when I was at dmb.org, and then he got too busy because he was writing a book. So we started working with Tug. So information architecture, I can't think of a better group than those guys to work with. If you're looking for training, and this is just my perspective, right? Who knows?
Sure, no.
Bruce Clay has wonderful training. Bruce has been doing this since forever.
Yeah. Bruce Clay is. Yeah.
He's probably the sharpest technical mind out there on this stuff. Like, super impressive guy. Yeah.
When I was in school, I took an accelerated web design course that was 2 years scrunched into one, and I went to school every day for a year. And one of my favorite courses was information architecture. And then I got out into the marketplace, and small business owners don't give a crap about information architecture. you're trying to tell them about, first we have to develop your sitemap, and then your information architecture, and then your content, and then your wireframes, and then your mock-up, and then we go to code. And by the way, we got to figure out what your unique selling proposition is as well. And
yeah.
And
God,
they don't care.
I forget the name of the book. It was written by Kelly Goto. It was something about the process of building websites. It was great. And the process, as far as I can recall, is still relevant today. But to your point, people are like, just give me the website.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't work. Just giving me a website just doesn't work. I tell people building a website is like building a house. And when you go to build a house, you don't just tell a carpenter to go build you a house. It takes so many different, what's the word I'm looking for? Skills. It takes a carpenter, it takes a drywaller, it takes a painter, it takes a plumber, it takes an electrician. And why it's no different with a website, right? It takes a copywriter, it takes an SEO, it takes a designer, it takes a coder, it takes an information architecture person. It takes, yet people think that it's just so simple to do. And it's not. Sure, you can go on Wix and get a website in 3 minutes, or Squarespace or whatever, but good luck.
Don't do that.
Yeah, good luck.
And we write a lot of long form content, blog articles, whatever you want to call it. And, and folks are like, well, can you write a page can you write the homepage? Can you write the about us page? Can you write a blurb for this page? No.
Yeah.
We can't. One, we don't have anyone scheduled. Two, we don't do that, and we're not going to try to do that.
No.
So we're not going to. Yeah. Let someone else who charges way less get it wrong, and then you can fix their copy.
Yeah, exactly. No, I hear you. Yeah. So you had talked about earlier, though, thin content versus what determines thin content? Like, for instance, is it less than 200 words? Is it is it in like, I haven't studied a lot about it. So, because I don't build thin content pages, so I've never encountered the problem. But 600 words minimum. I know that people talk about building skyscraper pages that are like 3,000 words long.
Oh God. Yeah.
But what constitutes a thin content penalty?
Yeah, so let's break down thin content into two definitions. One is not enough words on the page, and the other is you can have 1,000 words on the page, but it's not keyword focused.
Okay.
Or it's poorly written, or it's spun, or something like that.
Written just for the sake of being long, but adds no value.
Well, we'll call it old school SEO copy, right?
Okay. Okay.
That's sort of how people thought about it, think about it. It's awful. So if you have an article page that's 200 words, probably a bad idea. You should have an article page that what can you actually communicate to someone in 200 words that's worth talking about? Nothing, right? Nothing. So if it's a category page, maybe. If it's your home page, should have a little bit more than 200, but there's certain pages that are going to have less copy, and they're pass-through pages, and then you're going to have destination pages which have more copy. And that's just sort of how it works, right? The home page by definition is a very important page. Also, it's a pathway page largely. It's designed to get you from home page to something else ultimately. Category pages, same, right? Yeah. Paginated pages, same. Right. So less copy, but context. So give users and bots context to get to the destination. Yeah. When you're talking about the destination pages, now we're talking about, and we do this. So a lot of folks will charge when they're building copy. They'll charge based on the words per page. Yeah. And we sort of do that, but we back into it with you're going to buy 1,000 words from us, or whatever the magic number is. And then we're going to build somewhere between 20 and 30 pages, right? So, and they're going to go, well, how many pages? Well, we're going to use as many words as appropriate for each page. Some are going to be 800, some are going to be 1,200. And that's sort of our range. We don't do too much of we don't, right? Because now we're talking about the best copy for the best page, not 1,000 words. because that could be too much, aka thin copy, or it could be unrelated, which is another version of thin copy. Or it could just be, we didn't even get into the meat of some of the topics. So, so we cut the page short, right? So like, what are we talking about?
Interesting. So it depends on the search query. And are you providing value based on the search query of what it is that people are searching for? Are you providing enough value to answer their query and to justify the search? And is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's part of the art and the science of it, right? Like, and so the more you know about a topic, the more you can sort of imagine how to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Like if you had a page, for argument's sake, how long does it take to drive from New Jersey to California?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to take whatever, 20 hours, something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you don't stop, chances are you're going to stop. So where are you going to stop? Here are 10 places going north. Here are 10 places going south, right? That you should stop. So it's not, it takes 20 hours, right? Whatever, 5 words. It's going to be, you could go up to 1,000 words because it's relevant for that query. Like, I'm going to have to stop. Yeah. So at what point is it too much?
Stop to go to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah, the best. That's awesome. So the best rest stops along your trip, across country trip.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. You could have a really good.
So should that be?
I just figured someone's going to steal that now.
That's awesome. So then the question is, so should that be part of how long, or should it be a link out from how long it takes to its own page, along with the 10 best restaurants, not to miss, the 10 best places to actually stay. Right.
Wow. We just came up with the whole content.
We have a roadmap.
We just came up with a whole content roadmap based on how long does it get to get from New Jersey to California for someone.
Jersey to California.com.
Yeah, that's amazing. Hey, I want to thank you. I could keep talking, but I've taken up enough of your time, and I would love to have you back for a second episode where we can maybe dive into some other things on a more deeper level. That would be great, because I love talking about this, and I think our audience likes hearing about it, about topics, topics that are relevant to SEO and digital marketing. That being said, where can listeners connect with you online if they want to?
Yeah. You can search for me on LinkedIn, Nick Musica. That's music with an A on LinkedIn. You can go to opticsin.com. It's not about classes. It's about SEO. Opticsin. Those are 2 good places.
Okay. So LinkedIn and your website. Are you active on Twitter at all? Some people are, some people aren't.
Not so much.
Not so much. Yeah. Yeah. Neither am I.
Not so much.
For it. Yeah. Okay.